Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on all about talking about recruitment in the medical centre world. And my name is Jenny Boymore, and I might need everyone to mute themselves because there's a bit of feedback coming in. Could I just ask everyone to mute themselves, please? That would be awesome. I'm just going to mute you. Sorry. I might just get that started again. So I am your host for today, Jenny Boymore, and today we're talking all things recruitment, medical centre recruitment. And we all know that it's one thing getting applications and interest from people to apply, and it's a whole other thing to actually get those people to say yes. So what we're going to be talking about today is recruitment practices, recruitment processes for employees in a medical centre environment, doctors, both local and international doctors, and really answer questions that you may have. So please feel free to use the chat function as needed. You know, we will talk, but we do also want to make sure it's engaging and you know, you're here to chat. What would be really awesome if I could ask you if you just jump into the chat function and just let us know where you're coming from, whereabouts in Australia, and are you a medical centre owner? Are you a medical centre manager? What's your role? Or someone who's providing other services to the sector. So if you want to just jump on and introduce yourself in the chat, that would be fabulous. Sorry, I've done lots of talking today, so I've just brought my glass of water with me. Now, very lucky to be here with some incredible talent who have huge amounts of expertise and wonderful insights to share with everyone in the medical centre space, and some partners who have brought this event on together. So I will bring the experts up here into the spotlight so you can see everyone really simply. I have the amazing Sarah from You Legally, who specialises in providing legal advice and legal services for the medical centre sector, and you are just the most generous wealth of knowledge I've ever met. Sarah also has an incredible book which she's written, which I have in my hand here. So we'll definitely put a link to the book into the chat, so you feel free to jump in and order the book. We also have the incredible Megan Shorter, who I am just bringing on here. Megan specialises in recruiting overseas doctors and helping them with their requirements and placements into Australian medical practices. Is that a good explanation of you, Megan? Yes. Also, incredible generosity, passion, and you know, does incredible work in the sector. So really excited to have them with me here today. And I have the amazing Gemma, who I'm just bringing on here too. Gemma, welcome. And Gemma is one of my partners in crime at the Proven Group, and is one of our recruitment specialists, heads up the recruitment team, has a wealth of knowledge, has a really unique outlook on recruitment, really kind of bringing an advertising background that she has in the radio sector and across quite a few different markets to the recruitment space, and really looking at recruitment in a very different way. I think you know, the world of putting up a job ad, getting fantastic applicants, scrutinising them, and picking and choosing and keeping everyone hanging long gone. And so we've got to move into today's day and age, look at what people are looking for now, what are people needing, how can you set yourself as an organisation up for success in the recruitment process, and how do you set others up for success. So really today is all about practical how-tos. And please, as I said, as we're talking, please just feel free to use the chat as a tool. I always like it when people, if you hear someone say something really inspirational, practically wonderful and insightful, simple, and wow, how did I never think about that before? Feel free to put that comment in the chat. You can save the chat at the end and use it for your own purposes. So yes, really, really excited to be here. The Proven Group, we are a HR consultancy. We work with a lot of medical practices and really passionate about helping you build a workplace that you love being part of. And it's going to be different for everyone. So it's not the same. Obviously, compliance is an aspect. And for us, we like to make compliance simple, automate as much as we can, and really take the stress out of it so that you can really do the bits that you're best at and really empower the people around you also to thrive and come to work and enjoy it oh so much. So that is what we're all about. Now, Emma, I'm going to start with you. Now, there's been a real shift in how the world perceives recruitment and how we need to perceive recruitment today. Can you just talk a little bit about that? What do we need to be asking ourselves, thinking about to really recruit successfully in today's market?
What a question, Jenny. Yeah, that's a great question, and this is really the focus of my work day to day, because I think it can be pretty challenging for organisations because it does feel like a moving target, and just when you feel like you've nailed your processes and you're getting things right and you're starting to get the applicants that you are looking for and really quality talent, the market will shift again. So I think sort of being responsive and willing to look around and see what's really going on in the market and be realistic and get feedback from other organisations about what they're experiencing is probably the first one, and being willing to sort of change things up. But I guess to sort of simplify things, I think if you really work on focusing on your employer value proposition, this is something that I sort of bang on and on and on about, you're going to stand yourself in good stead. There is a reason why somebody would want to work for your organisation and in your practice versus one down the road. So really, it's about distilling that, finding out what that is, and finding the best way that works for you to let candidates in the market know about that.
And you know, one of the challenges is, I think, and you know, I don't think this is anything to feel embarrassed or stressed a little bit, but not embarrassed about, is that, you know, sometimes we find ourselves in a position where we've got a bit of a, in the people side of the world, we've got a bit of a revolving door. And I know this is very stressful for medical practices. They kind of find themselves, you know, find this great practice manager and got this great reception team, and suddenly, you know, you look around and everyone's gone, and it's like, and then you're starting again, and you've got all this stuff going on. And really, so sometimes, you know, when you're looking at that employee value proposition and why would someone want to work here, sometimes you look in the mirror and you go, I don't even know if I want to work here, let alone them working
right.
here.
Yeah.
And so this is where we're all a work in progress. So I don't think you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, the world, it's just, this is hopeless. But if you don't know why someone would want to work there, it's very hard to start the employment process. You know, you don't know who you're wanting to attract. And generally, if you don't have the clarity around that, the recruitment process isn't very successful. We're talking about employees and, you know, office and, you know, all sorts of different employees that exist in a medical centre. Yeah. They vary broadly. But we're also talking about when you're trying to attract doctors. So if someone doesn't have the workplace culture and all of these perks that they need, where do they start? Yeah, I think someone may be off mute again. I might just mute them. But yeah, where do they start?
That's a good question. I would probably start with actually engaging with the current team about why they like working there, what that brings to them, and it will be different for everybody. But I also think, especially in this field, and Megan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. People want to make an impact. That they want to be, that they want to make a positive impact. And if you are able to really articulate the impact that somebody will be able to make in your organization, I think that will go a long way. But definitely, I think as a starting point, acknowledging that you're not going to be able to wave a magic wand and really turn around a culture by the time you get an ad up on Seek. I do think just having a chat, and that could be a survey, or it depends on the size of your team, could be a survey or just a chat with the employees that do work in the organization, particularly those that do really like it. Find out what it is about them, find out what it is that they do like and resonate with, and you can draw on that. And it doesn't have to be a huge sweeping benefit or anything like that. It's just really finding out what it is, and that will appeal to somebody who will fit the culture of your organization.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, don't try to be something else.
No.
You've got to think about what's relevant to you and your organization, and it's okay to be aspirational. Now, Gemma, I am going to say a very loaded question here. When you talk about recruitment, you use one word over and over and over, and that word is transparency. And I think this relates to this aspirational nature. Like, if you don't have the workplace right now that you want it to be, it's okay. How does this relate to recruitment and transparency?
I'm so glad you brought up my favorite word, Jenny. Look, I think if I could distill the modern recruitment market, Megan, again, I'd love your thoughts on this, but if I could distill the expectations of the current recruitment market in a modern recruitment process, transparency is the word that I would use. It's what's expected in the marketplace. And far from, I think there might be a misconception possibly that by being really transparent, you're going to only get candidates who are looking for the very, very top of the band, the highest paid, and it's not necessarily the case. When you are transparent about what's great about your organization and also about the challenges, everybody is coming into this with eyes wide open. There are many, many people who are not afraid of a challenge and are looking for that. And again, if they're looking to make an impact, being able to clearly see that they will be able to come into an organization and influence change for the better, that is incredibly attractive to a specific cohort. And if you do have challenges in your organization, that's the cohort that you need to influence and affect that change. So yes, I'm a big fan of a transparent process from salaries, from benefits, from working hours, from flexibility. Anything that is going to be a factor in your recruitment process, I would be as upfront about it as I could right from the start, and you will really, I think, get a much better result.
I could not agree with you more. And I think, I'm sure we've all had experiences where you go through the recruitment process and you go, wow, I'm so excited. And you walk in and it's kind of like when you were in the recruitment process, you were a visitor and now you're part of the family. And it's like, I'm not sure about this family so much. And it's nothing worse than that. You want to set people up for success. And why waste your own time in really kind of slumping that expectation before it ever begins? It just really doesn't help with the process at all. Megan, do you want to talk about this little piece a little bit as it relates to international doctors? Obviously everyone comes from a different background, a different culture, a different set of experiences. They want to come to Australia for all different reasons. How are you seeing this expectation piece play out?
That's a really good question. And I agree so much with what you and Gemma have been saying when it comes to transparency. And it's also walking that line between being transparent, but also not crapping all over your practice. I mean, there are always things that you need to work on, absolutely. And Gemma, as you said, you want to find the right person. Recruitment for a member of your team is exactly the same as recruiting for a relationship in your real life. And I say it that way because that's how I've always approached my dating life, and I've been successful, thank goodness. But you don't want to walk into your first date or first interview and try and hide all of the bad things. And I mean, I say bad things, but the challenging things, because, you know, Jem, as you said, you want to find someone that is going to align with your values and align with, you know what, you know, you've mentioned that this is a patient base that you need to grow. Thanks for telling me that. I'm prepared to build a patient base versus, oh yeah, we're going to have plenty of patients, and then the doctor starts on their first day and there's not enough patients. Find someone that has that ability to market themselves. So yeah, Jem, everything you've said, I completely agree with, and it's a really good point to raise. So when it comes to international doctors, their expectations are set by their friends. So if they've got friends and family already working in Australia, that's the expectations. And so when you're interviewing these doctors, and I mean, whether you're working with an agency or whether you're working directly, finding out what their expectations are first and foremost is one of the most important things that you can do. Because if you say, look, you know, I'm looking forward to telling you all about our practice, but before I start, tell me what you've heard about working in Australia, or if they're already working in Australia, what have you experienced and what are your expectations coming in? And not only what are your expectations, but what are your ideals? Tell me the up here, because I can tell you what we can do and what we can't do. That's the most important conversation that I know I have with my international doctors coming in. And I'm going to use the specialist pathway doctors that RACGP this time last year actually made some pretty magnificent changes to the specialist pathway. And I'm going to say they're about to do it again. So hold fire on that. But essentially what they did is they allowed a whole new cohort of doctors to be able to come into Australia under the specialist pathway. Now, certain groups of practices heard about this, flew over to the various countries and sold massive packages. I'm talking about massive relocation bonuses, accommodation for months and things like that. And what we're finding is that once those particular groups of practices were filled, the friends of these doctors that were originally offered coming through have these massive expectations. And so then you kind of at the other end where you're like, thanks for telling me your expectations. Now I need to let you know what the current market is doing, and encouraging them to go out and do their research and not being afraid to lose them, because if they go out and do their research, they're probably going to find that because you've done your research and you know what the market is offering, you're able to give them good education around that. And ideally they'll then come back to you and go, well, do you know what, I didn't like what you said, I went out and had a look and now I've come back and you were actually right. So I hope that answers the question. I feel like maybe
that's awesome. Thank you. It's brilliant. Gemma, can we talk a little bit about recruitment process? Because I think, you know, a lot of people kind of used to have a philosophy that, you know, you put an ad up somewhere, you know, that was always the first part of the process, which, as Gemma said, it's definitely not. It's the strategy, the clarity, the, you know, working out what you're offering and so forth, which is a completely different story. And then they would put the job ad up, and then you'd have a due date. Of course, you had a due date of whatever it was, and then you didn't look at any applications until the due date. Then you'd go through all of the things that have come in. Happen to you if you do that now?
That gives me anxiety even hearing that. Yeah, no. Yeah, again, it's that transparency, it's that piece. It's rather than sort of waiting for a cohort so you can measure everybody against everybody else and skills matrix and all of that type of stuff. And those things are still important. And in an ideal world, you'll get a whole bunch of incredible applicants right off the bat and you'll be able to do that. But the chances of that happening are not that high, that you're going to get really quality applicants that can directly compare to one another in the first week or two of a recruitment. So my strategy is always to jump on what's in front of me. If I have got a great candidate that's come through, I'm going to pick up the phone to them straight away and be really honest with them and have a normal conversation about where we're at in our process, give them the expectations on timelines, let them know when we'll be in touch next, really keep those communication lines open. And that will buy you a little bit of time, first of all, so that you may be in a position to directly compare, but also building those relationships. A recruitment process is I think that dating analogy, Megan, is so great, because I was going to actually talk about catfishing. That we don't want to catfish these candidates. But if you're in a position where you can actually meet a candidate informally, I would go right ahead and do that. Build those relationships, and yeah, just keep the expectations open. People are more than willing to have those conversations, and if they're invested in you, they might then hold off a little bit on making a decision about somebody else who might be having a conversation with them, because especially in a really difficult to fill specialty, and medical absolutely falls into that, as you would know, Megan. If you think they're a good candidate, so does somebody else. So you just want to be making sure that you're building those relationships with them on an ongoing basis. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. It's really interesting because I had a mentor many years ago, and he said to me, his philosophy is recruit 24/7. And he didn't
Yes,
mean like get up at 3 o'clock
100%.
in the morning and start recruiting, but really your eyes and ears as a practice manager, as a practice owner, you should be eyes open all the time looking for quality candidates. And if a quality person comes in, whether you have a job going or not, right today, there's an opportunity to have a proactive conversation and really be talking to them, regardless of the position. If they're a values match and they're a match across your needs, then there's an opportunity to be talking to them. I always used to say, if I meet the right person in the business, I'll always make a role for them. So it might not be right today, but it might be in 2 months, someone gets pregnant, whatever. There's always things going on with people. So really having that openness. But back to Gemma's conversation, it's about the purpose of an interview is not to trick someone. The purpose isn't to interrogate them and to make them anxious and over-prepared. Your role as the person interviewing is really to be calming the whole piece down and letting them know, that really this is a conversation and I'm trying to understand if we're a good fit for you, if you're a good fit for us.
That's right.
Sarah, would you like to add anything at this point?
I noticed Megan has her hand up.
Megan's got a hand up.
Just a very quick one here, because it falls into the whole, when you get an applicant in, contact them. This is something I teach my team and I try and express to all of my clients. Time kills deals.
100%.
Yeah, you hear that and you kind of think, oh, that's a very salesy way of thinking. It's not. Jen, I think you said that maybe it was someone said, Jen, if you think that someone is a good candidate, so has someone else. And, being in recruitment, all I do is talk to clients, talk to candidates, negotiate deals. And the amount of times that, clients have lost candidates, or candidates have lost an offer because they have faffed around. I have a particular client I'm working with at the moment, and he didn't have a contract prepared. So when I presented him with a doctor, they interviewed, everyone loved one another, and unfortunately the contract wasn't ready. And they're going through Sarah's legal service actually to get a contract sorted. But the candidate is starting to get a bit itchy. And I know that she's actually pulled out of another practice before because they took too long to get her a contract. So when you have a good candidate, speak to them as quickly as you possibly can, interview them as quickly as you possibly can. And if they're the right person, get a contract in front of them, get pen to paper, and make sure that you're getting them their documents. If they're an international candidate, you might need PESCI documents, ARPA documents, get those done ASAP, because otherwise they'll go elsewhere.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Could not agree more.
I think, Jem, you also talk a lot, and I know, Megan, you talk about this as well, about providing transparency in what the recruitment process actually looks like. So really sharing with people what their expectation is of the next steps. So, you've had a great interview. What are you going to do next? What's the time frame on that? What can they expect? Do they need to speak to anyone else? What do they need to do? And then what do you need to do to progress this arrangement? And as everyone said, the higher the caliber and quality of the candidates, the clearer this piece needs to be. And if your goal is to build such great rapport with that candidate that they're telling you, and you're asking them quite openly about what else are they looking at, what other situations are they in discussions with, and likewise, you know, you've got a couple of other candidates that you're talking to as well. And so it's not about playing a game, it's actually about just, if you meet the right person from a values match and a skills match perspective, it's actually about giving them the respect that they need to really take them on that journey. Now, Gemma, I really, you know, good questions are magic in a recruitment process, and a lot of people ask very closed questions, so yes, no questions. Do you like fish? You know, not much information you get from there. Can you share with us a couple of really, really awesome questions that help you understand what makes someone tick?
That's a good question again. I don't really have a one-size-fits-all answer to that question, which is probably an answer in itself, because there isn't a list of specific questions, in my experience, that allow you to clearly ascertain whether this candidate is going to be great or not. There are some ones that I do like. I like questions that make candidates feel really comfortable, because I want them to feel like they're able to chat. So I will obviously ask things like, tell me about yourself, which is such a basic one, but really that is important because they really will tell you about themselves, and you get a chance to get to know them a little bit better and what makes them tick as people before you can start diving into some of the more behavioural questions. I would always base my questions on a behaviour. So really it's going back to the PD, your essential criteria, your qualifications, all of that kind of stuff, getting your housekeeping questions down. But then it really is looking at those essential criteria and asking behavioural based questions based on those criteria, i.e. tell me about a time when you have, what was the impact, what did you learn, what might have you done differently in the future. Give people an opportunity to elaborate on their skills and experience. I'm not a huge fan of those questions that sort of dive into somebody's psyche. There's a lot of, you know, like, if you could be a bear or a wolf, what would you be? Like, oh, I'm not getting insight into anybody by those things. I know there's a school of thought that like them, but I don't. Because again, I think it just minimizes a person, and it's not a respectful way of dealing with somebody. And you know, there are some questions that I do like. One thing I always like to do is sort of ask what somebody's plans would be for their sort of first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, so that you can kind of get an idea of their planning and the way they might plan on integrating into a team, which is always really important. But I think sticking to those basics of open-ended behavioural questions that address the criteria, and you'll be off to a good start.
I really love that. I always like ask people about, you know, can you tell me about a workplace environment you've worked in that really you've thrived the most, to try to really understand more about what kind of environment, what kind of people they've really enjoyed working with. Because ultimately, I think, to me, the last thing I would like to do is to bring someone in and to know that that's not, they're not going to enjoy it. They're not going to work. They're not going to.
You want to find out what's going to light somebody up, and especially in regards to patient base, I think too. You know, examples of times, look, how they're going to resonate with your patients as well as the rest of the team. I think is also you're sort of doing a fit three ways in that respect. Yeah.
Gemma, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise. You are amazing as always.
I'm sorry to run. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Megan and Sarah. Bye.
Megan, do you want to continue on that path for a moment? And just let's talk about specifically. What are some of the questions that you like to ask doctors to really understand, you know, the core of what they're looking for?
We keep our questions pretty simple. We push them about the income expectations that they have, because it's good to be able to speak to our clients about that in advance to say, look, these are their expectations. Because at the end of the day, if our clients are point blank no, and sometimes that's more than fair enough, it gives you the opportunity. So we keep ours very there's not a lot of fluff, basically. I think that's the best way I can put it. Probably the fluffiest question I do ask, and I'll explain why I don't see it as fluffy, is what are your 3 most important things? And people often go, oh, I really want a good work culture. And I say to them, okay, so if I find something that has the best work culture ever, but they're only going to offer you 50% of billings and you're only going to earn $50,000 a year, that's okay? And they go, oh no, absolutely not. And you go, okay, cool. Well, let's go back around to what's really important to you. Not only that, what does culture mean to you? You know, do you want a good work culture where you go in and they're making you cheese and crackers for, you know, morning tea every morning, which some of my practice do, and make sure that the receptionists are bringing them a cup of tea on the hour every hour? Or, you know, is a good culture to you just everyone gets together for lunch? Or is a better culture that no one comes together for lunch and everyone just does their own thing? What does culture mean to you? So they're probably the questions that I ask my doctors, is understanding the fundamentals of what they want, because then you can match it to what the practice can offer. So if they want a practice that has a team of 10, you know, you're not gonna fit them in with a practice that has a team of 3. And what I teach my team is the very most important question you can ever ask is why. Whenever someone says this is important to me, you say why. Why is it important to you? Explain. And the reason we do that is because sometimes people say it's really important to me that I get 70% of billings, and you say why, and they go, well, then I'm going to earn the most money. And you can go on to explain to them, but 60% of $3,000 a day is much more than 70% of $1,500 a day. Don't work out the maths just in case, but usually that's the case. It's not always about percentage. It's about what number of patients do you want to see. So I guess what they want their day-to-day to look like, as opposed to whether or not they're a sheep or a bear. I agree with Jem a lot on that.
Yeah.
That's not going to tell us a lot, especially not in the medical industry. The medical industry, it is mostly about where is it, how much am I going to earn, and, you know, is a pharma rep going to buy me a lunch on a Friday?
Totally. Can I ask you, you know, you're talking about these fundamentals, and you know, when you're talking about doctors relocating from another country and coming to Australia, is it like, do you find that a lot of people are interested and inspired and attracted to being involved in growing the work, or are they more looking for something quite established where they just walk in and do the doctor doing, as opposed to, you know, being part of the build process?
I've actually found my Australian doctors are the ones that want to walk in and already have a patient base.
Yeah.
From my doctors that are coming in directly from overseas, you've got the 2 cohorts. You've got the doctors coming in on the specialist pathway, and they're usually the ones that have the bigger expectations. So they might say, I want to make sure I've got enough patients. The doctors coming in under the standard pathway, under level 1 supervision, they're just grateful to be here, you know. So I usually find, and part of the reason I specialize in IMGs is they're just grateful to be coming to Australia and having a better lifestyle, in the most part. So yeah, a lot of them aren't looking for established patient bases. No, they're looking for security. So having those initial guarantees is really important, and I'll leave it up to Sarah to talk about how you'd work that from a legal and accounting perspective with the payroll tax that's going on. But as long as you're offering them a bit of security and letting them know that they're going to have support, they're happy. They don't need guarantees of a patient base.
That's really interesting. And you know, for a lot of people across a lot of different job roles, you know, people are motivated by different things, and security is a really key motivator. People don't want to move their whole life or just their job or whatever it is. You know, we spend more time at work than we do doing anything else, really. So you don't want to pick up and move to then find this isn't it. So security plays a really big role, and a lot of that ends up being that conversation about culture and the attitude of the leadership who are involved in the recruitment, to actually, you know, genuinely want to build a practice that actually has that longevity. I don't know if anyone on here, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anyone on here loves having churn. And you know, it's not good for anyone, not good for patients, for you. It's not good for stress levels of anyone. So yeah, it really makes a difference. Megan, we've had a question coming in. Can you talk a little bit about the new changes to IMG pathways, metro location?
It's a really good question. A lot of people are asking. So there's 3 pathways to come into Australia. The specialist pathway is in the process of changing. They've always been quite clear about who's partially and substantially comparable. And the substantially comparables can go to an M1 location, providing it's a DPA. The partially comparables must go rural. That's changing. They're no longer stating who's partially and substantially. So ask for a comparability assessment before you offer anyone. I think the question might be directed at the doctors coming in on the standard pathway, sitting for their PESCs and coming through that way, or doctors may be coming out of the hospital system. So with IMGs at the moment, they can work in an M1 location if they're on a visa. If they are a resident of Australia, they can actually participate in an M1 location if they're on what's called the PFP program, which is the pre-fellowship program. For a level 1 doctor, there's actually quite significant incentives for taking a doctor on in an M1 location. It's $10,000, which is paid in installments quarterly over the 12 months and potentially over the second year that they're on there as well. But yes, IMGs can go into an M1 location if they're on a visa or if they're on that PFP program. So the PFP program is for a maximum of 2 years. They will then need to go and work on one of the GP training programs. If they are on a visa, they can actually stay in a metro location and do a couple of days a week and then do a couple of days rural to meet their training requirements. So happy to have a chat about that.
Megan, I mean, wow, gosh, I mean, you're so knowledgeable about the details of how this all works. I would really highly recommend that if this is relevant to you, you have a one-on-one chat with Megan. A little follow-up question here, Megan. Does PFP give access to level 1 rebates?
No, unfortunately, it's going to be those A2 rebates in an M1 or A7 rebates in an M2 plus.
I hope everyone here knows exactly what we're talking about. But yes,
right.
thank you. So yeah, so feel free to reach out to Megan and Megan, if you can put a booking link into the chat, that would be really, really awesome, so people can book a time to chat with you. Thank you. Sarah, let's get you on here. You know, this negotiation piece with doctors, you know, whether they're local or international. Can you talk to us a little bit about this piece? What do you see as the most successful way to do this? And how do we, you know, how do we set the process up for success? When do you need to have things ready? How do you recommend best practice to go about it?
I think it's such a great point that Megan made earlier, that like having your documents ready is a competitive advantage. So I would say that investing in well-documented contracts, that helps from the transparency we've been talking about from the get-go, but also shows that, you know, you're like keen and ready to get moving with someone, which is also important if there's somebody that other people are going to be interested in. So I've seen in the last few weeks, actually, lots of practice owners trying to draft their own contracts in relation to IMGs and local. And they're like, I am a lawyer, but I would, even if I wasn't, I think you guys might agree with me, strongly suggest that people don't do that. It can be a lot more expensive than just getting a lawyer to do your template, because there are all sorts of regulatory disasters out there waiting to happen at the moment. And in fact, this person that was telling me that they drafted their contract, I said, oh, that wouldn't be enforceable. And he said, oh, what do you mean? And I said, oh, it's not enforceable because it's vague. contracts need to be specific about, and it was about them wanting to be paid back for training time for IMGs. And so they just kind of made this very vague statement in the contract. And he's like, well, it's in the contract. I'm like, but, you know, you can't tell what would be paid back, how much, that sort of thing. And he's like, oh, I'll draft an addendum. And I said, well, maybe you could send it to me and I can have a look and send you a quote. And he's like, oh, yes, I'll be in touch immediately. So, yeah, I think not drafting your own legal agreements is up there. Doing it early, as Megan said, as well. And I guess like really working with someone like Megan who understands the process if they're an international doctor and what's needed, because sometimes we find people come to us at very late notice saying they want an agreement in, you know, 24 hours, but they don't really understand where they're at the process with that particular candidate, because the needs are all different. So I know I feel like I'm beating the drum on the same topic, but
Sarah, I actually think that this is a critical topic, because I think when we're talking about recruitment and setting people up for success, the devil actually is in the detail.
Yes.
The detail. So you said something, does the contract match what you said? That is an area for distrust. So
Yes.
what you are remember, we're trying to set you and the candidate up for success. So, you know, Gemma, you know, spoke about, I would call radical transparency. And, you know, can't push this point enough. Like, you are not, the aim of the game is not to play some wild goose chase game to try to trick people into signing something. The aim is
it's not going to be a long-term relationship then,
no.
is it?
Present
It might not
yourself
even
as
really
you
start.
are. Present yourself as you are. Have the contract reflect that. And this, you know, I'm going to say this, it's a bit self-serving, sorry. But, you know, to me, it's about having advisors on the team, you know, like us, to support the HR practices and the setting up the team and the people for success. Like Megan for international recruitment. Like Sarah for the legal piece around the recruitment. It's about having advisors who are aligned with your values as well. Because if you like to, you know, have conversations and then you might change your mind, and, you know, you've got to understand what you're dealing with. Like, you know, Sarah can only deal with the information that you put in front of her. So if you've said this is the framework, or, you know, confirm things with the doctor and send it through to me, you know, that's all Sarah can deal with. She wasn't in the room through the whole recruitment process. And it's those sorts of things that undermine these
your
processes.
credibility.
Yeah. And I think you've really got to think about, and then you know, Megan was talking about the friends, talking to other friends. Like, the reality is doctors have gone to university and have worked in medical practices, and they know other doctors. So on the other side of that coin is, imagine a world where you find the most perfect doctor in the universe, and you have this amazing recruitment process where you really understand their needs and they really understand your needs. You put together a really fair agreement which has an overarching philosophy of where everybody wins. You bring them into the practice and really set them up for success. So you've got a great, a great induction program. What does that then look like? For their friends that they can invite in. Sarah, I might get you to jump in while I cough you.
Yeah, sure. So I think that
Sorry. So I'll jump back in and ask you the question then.
You're better.
You know,
you're better.
Thank you. So really, you know, that piece there is really important. Sarah, maybe could you share with us, when you're writing these contracts, and of course there's sometimes toing and froing, which is quite normal, what are these pain points? And Megan, you might jump in afterwards, of these pain points of these negotiation pain points, because if you know as doctors what they are already, then you can preemptively try to address them through the process so that you haven't spent all this time dealing with them, spent the money on the lawyer, spent the money on the recruitment, and then it's like, oh, this is a no deal. It's a deal breaker, you know? Well, what are those things?
Well, actually, I think one of the pain points is probably that doctors sometimes will just sign something without realizing what they're signing or getting advice. And that's where they find themselves in trouble. We've had a number of IMG doctors come to us that have signed documents that really, if they'd got advice, they probably would never have signed, with clauses in them like, that they need to stay for a certain period of time, and they didn't realize that they weren't getting a great deal when they signed that, or with a liquidated damages clause, which might be under the new unfair contracts legislation deemed unfair, but that they basically have to pay to get out of the arrangement, is a risk, I suppose, for doctors. And so I think making sure that your agreement is fair can avoid some of those pain points. But there's lots of issues, regulatory, that are around at the moment that are causing pain points. So we had someone come to us in the last week saying, oh, we've got the appointment with, a potential doctor this coming week, and we just need the agreement changed in this way. And then we'd done it late last year, but there've been regulatory changes since then. So we made the change, they said, and we said we'd also suggest not including a restraint, which is going to potentially have this person deemed as an employee. And we also suggest you make the indemnity both ways, so it's not deemed unfair under the unfair contracts legislation. All of these things which have really changed like quite quickly, I suppose. So what also is risky, I suppose, and comes up a lot is the legal characterization of arrangement. So some people might be liable to pay superannuation or payroll tax, which is a state tax, big conversations around that, or other entitlements based on the agreement. And what's difficult, I think, for practices is they might be doing what's, in the best interest of the law, of the candidate, of their practice, but then you are in competition with practices that aren't doing the right thing. And so that can make it feel like you're doing the right thing and it's really unfair, because you're going to be potentially penalised for the candidate going to someone who's taking risks that you're not willing to take. And so I think that's a difficult area. And I think probably in just the communication of that in our radical transparency is critical.
Yeah, really, really love this. And we haven't fully had this conversation, but I just think it's very relevant to share. We do a lot of work in franchising, and the relationships in franchising. We do a lot of work in medical sector. The doctor practice relationship and the franchisee, which both exist in medical, quite similar relationships, where there's kind of this funny power struggle between the two relationships. And when we're talking to people who are looking to get into those relationships, we always suggest that it's not just the practice that gets the legal advice, that it's also the individual.
Absolutely.
And so, as a practice, I think a really great practice, and I'd love your thoughts, Sarah, would actually be to say to the doctor to actually, we think it would be really useful for you to get some legal advice to actually, or bring them into the process. What do you recommend in that area?
Yeah, I absolutely recommend. That's probably part of this radical transparency thing we're talking about, that says, look, we've got nothing to hide in this agreement that we've prepared, and we want you to be protected as well as we are protected. And we know how well we're protected because we had this agreement prepared. And And I guess that's another reason to have the documents ready to go, because if you're in a rush, that's going to take some time for that doctor to get their own advice.
Yeah. Can I ask you, do you ever kind of sit down and actually take doctors through the process? Was that a big
Yes.
conflict of interest? Or
Yeah,
can you tell us a little-
it's a conflict of interest if we've drafted the agreement. So there have been occasions when we can't act, but we can always recommend like other people that have some expertise. So
that's great, because you really want people who have medical sense.
Oh, absolutely. The industry experience is critical.
Yeah, that's right. That's really, really important. Megan, what do you do in this area in regards to the doctors getting, some advice on what they're doing?
We quite often have doctors bring us contracts, whether we've placed them or whether we have, a lot of my doctors just come to me, I'm starting in a new practice, I've got this contract, what do you think? My first response is always, I legally cannot give you advice, I'm not a lawyer. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. But there are a few things we always check for and just say, look, these are a few things we're worried about, and then we refer them on to Sarah.
Good, excellent. Yeah, it's a small price to pay, isn't it, for peace of mind? Because things go wrong with relationships, which is why often lawyers exist. Things do go wrong with relationships, and you want to pay a little bit upfront to make sure that how you end the relationship can respect everyone's have everyone leave in a respectful and dignified way, as opposed to quite dramatic. It's not good for anyone.
I would like to just jump in here, and it's only because it's my personal high horse topic. Liquidated damages is going to make a GP run away in almost every single time. And I've never seen a single situation where a contract has ended on liquidated damages that has not gone very, very awry. So while I do understand that practices invest a lot of money in doctors coming on, making sure that you're taking the time to ensure the doctor is the right person, and that you're building a pipeline, I guess, and negotiating the agreement so that you are going to make your investment back quickly, as opposed to trying to have a clawback clause, is just something I would highly recommend.
Thanks, Megan. Thank you. It's really interesting. We've spoken about so many things to do with the recruitment process today. And, last time we spoke about a whole bunch of practices around the complexity of the medical centre environment. One of the pieces that really concerns me a lot is about the relationship with doctors, local or international, with the rest of the team in a medical centre, and setting those relationships up for success with very clear expectations on everyone's side is really, really important. And, more often the doctors will have more interaction with the reception team and the office manager than they will with anybody else. And you really want to make sure that that's a positive relationship, a respectful relationship, a legally compliant relationship, to make sure that everyone is in a psychologically safe workplace. So if you do have concerns in the area, I think it's really important to really address that as quickly as you can to get that piece under control and really set up all of the relationships to succeed. You've got a doctor coming in who is a competent individual, but making sure that they understand the processes, practices, behaviours of the practice is just absolutely critical. So yeah, there's so many elements to this, and obviously the legislative frameworks that you've got to work with, and the changes to the legal requirements. So really, I can't strongly stress enough the importance of having the right advisors on your team that are going to help set you up for success. Wow, so many amazing nuggets of gold there. So thank you both so much. So many moments of wisdom. If you do want to put a question in the chat, please feel free to do so now. Megan, I might ask you, I know you shared your wisdom, much of your wisdom with us today. Can you share with us one piece of that you think it's really important that people walk away from today with?
The transparency. I know we have really banged on about it, but I absolutely think that's the most important takeaway, because being honest right in the beginning and letting them know that this is what we want to achieve, this is where we're at currently, and this is how we can see you fitting in. The most important thing you can do. They're only going to find out later anyway, and then they'll bugger off. So what you can do.
Totally agree. Totally agree. It's expensive from many perspectives when recruitment doesn't work out. It's not just the cost of the recruitment itself. It's the opportunity cost of the time, and really the impact on the rest of the team as well. So it's better to do it properly. If you don't have that clarity, please just be in touch, and we can all help you to ensure that you can set it up for success. Sarah, what about you?
I think it's like preparing your practice to be ready when you are recruiting. So, you obviously know that there's someone coming, you need someone, and at that stage, maybe at the same stage as you're calling Megan, you're calling you legal and getting the documents started at the very least, so that maybe there needs to be a round of changes, which is already included in our scope, but that's going to be a lot quicker to have the base document to work from that you've already signed off on than trying to start it right when other people are vying for the same candidate.
Yeah, totally agree. And I would push it even further than that, and having a plan prepared for how you're going to onboard the candidate to set them up for success. So, you've got your recruitment happening, and you can tell them in the recruitment process, this is what's going to happen.
Yes.
Week 1 will look like this. We're going to do this. We're going to touch base every week for 20 minutes where, you'll have an opportunity, whatever it is that you do, having a very clear system and an opportunity to really roll it out. So, I think there's a lot of pieces there. I must say, I think the theme of today is radical transparency.
I love it.
And really, that's all about you're allowed to have a practice that is run where you love coming to work. Think about what you want that to be, and then get the help to help you deliver that, and then find people and recruit people who are going to really align with that value system, because when you're aligned on values, there's still going to be challenges, things still come up, but it gives you the ability to work through things in a completely different way. So really, really grateful that you've all joined us today. Thank you for the questions. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you all soon. We did put in the chat the book from the Proven Group, which is all about less headaches, happier team, more success, and the book from Sarah on growing a medical practice. So please feel free to order those. We'll send that to you in an email, and the recording as well. And if you have any questions, please reach out, and thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.